$85,700. Bitcoin is sitting very, very pretty up at these all-time highs right now. It managed to break its $82,000 high right here, and it's flying. And right now, we are still aggressively trending higher as we speak, setting brand new all-time highs every single minute. And obviously, the reason that we're able to do that so aggressively right now is going to be because Bitcoin is in full price discovery mode. We've never traded at these prices before. We have no history at these prices. We have no technical levels at these prices. And so really, this thing is just going to keep going up until that demand gets exhausted, or until somebody with a big order decides, you know what, I don't want to be in this market anymore, and I want to send this thing heading downwards. And more importantly, that's going to start triggering a cascading effect that could really, really send this market crashing down in terms of a long squeeze. I'm sure we're all familiar with those kind of ideas. So we're going to get to that in a little bit. If you're excited for this video like I am, do me a favor and smash up those likes that you are coming in to this YouTube video. If you want to trade with free capital, these exchanges are giving you tons of free money to throw into the market right now today. When you start trading using these links down below, you can throw that money into the market, and any profits you make with it are going to be yours to withdraw. And obviously, only check them out if you're allowed to by law in your country. But bringing it back to Bitcoin here, we've got a really nice band of support that we've managed to develop here at kind of $84,000, where Bitcoin had essentially traded sideways here. Not for too long. We are on the minute time frame, let me remind you, but Bitcoin did manage to establish some sort of sideways trading range here, which lasted about 2.5 hours, which I think at this point, given how quickly Bitcoin is moving, is about the best that we're going to get. And obviously, if this thing does continue to rise up higher, that next psychological target is going to be $90,000. But I also want to just drop a line here on this chart. You guys are gonna like this line. It's just gonna go right here at $100,000. We're going to leave that line right there. We're going to make that extra thick, and that is just going to stay there as our North Star, ladies and gents, because, you know, the reason that we're looking at this line right now is because Bitcoin is so stupidly close to $100,000 right now. It's so strange to say these things out loud, but here we are. It's not even a 20% move. It's not even a 20% move for Bitcoin to get back up to that all-time. I'm sorry, we've never been there, but to get up to $100,000. But you know what? Another thing that I did want to tell you guys about, and really nobody's talking about this, is that we've had, you know, when Bitcoin set its all-time high, you know, in 2021 here at 69,000, or at any of these between 58 and 66, you know, when Bitcoin set these all-time highs, there were significantly fewer dollars and other fiat currencies in circulation. And so, in other words, since 2021 all-time highs, there's been a shitload of inflation. There's been a lot of inflation. And because there's been a lot of inflation, and yes, shitload is a technically accurate term in this context. We're going to roll with it. We're just going to roll with it, ladies and gents. Because we've seen so much inflation, the current Bitcoin price is only slightly above our previous all-time high when you adjust it for inflation. And I think that's a really important thing to be keeping in mind at this stage in the market. And by the way, that figure is going to vary depending on what kind of data you look at. It's going to be under the all-time high depending on certain metrics of inflation and so on. So, you know, this is going to be a little bit open to interpretation, but the point is clear. It's that Bitcoin right now, even though this looks really cool, adjusted for inflation, Bitcoin is not doing anything that crazy yet. And the reason that I'm telling you this is because every bull market, Bitcoin does do crazy things adjusted for inflation. So I just don't even think we're there yet. More importantly, I don't really even think we've started yet. Because if we're always going to do something that significantly outpaces inflation, and we haven't quite even fully gotten into that rhythm yet, then it must mean that we're still early, right? It must mean that we're still early. We're going to have to see how things like the Fear and Greed Index update. Let's see if it has updated here. Yeah, it has. And strangely, we're down by 2 points, which is so weird. It's going to update again, of course, in 5 hours. So we'll see how that goes. It's probably going to be significantly higher when it does update. But I'll tell you what's interesting is the S&P 500. We saw aftermarket, after hour sessions showing us that the S&P was above 6,000, and it did indeed start trading above 6,000 just earlier today, if I'm not mistaken, but only very marginally above. Look at that. Yeah, very, very marginally above. And yeah, all of this also happening throughout the course of today, actually. So because we're on the minute time frame, so there was quite a bit above that 6,000 range, but the S&P is just kind of holding on now, which is completely fine. It's still showing that there is a an overall clearly bullish environment here. The fact that we're holding on to these levels as opposed to getting a quick rejection, to me, just continues to indicate that we're holding the current state of affairs right now in terms of how bullish this market is. And I think that's really important because, with traditional finance, we're not going to see the tides shifting anywhere near as quickly as we see it with crypto. And I think that's a really big deal because we're not going to be expecting, quick developments where things change, every day that we come back to YouTube and analyze it. And so the best that we can get, and this is really important, the best that we can get is understanding that if things are staying the same, then that's still really good because we're still in a really, really positive environment. So for me, it's not so much about are we doing anything impressive, it's are we deviating from how good things are, right? Things are really, really good right now. The current state of affairs are really positive for the market. Are we moving away from that? If the answer is no, I'm happy. If the answer is yes, we got to start looking at things, but we're not there. We're not there at all. The dollar looking strong, rising up to some of its zones of resistance up ahead, most likely, probably in response to that Trump presidency win. And if the dollar is able to get up to this 105, 106 really range on this index, this is going to be a macro zone of resistance. Now, the dollar correctly found resistance here. I mentioned that we could get a deep pullback or a shallow one, and I don't know, but I would expect a pullback. And we did get a pullback, and now we're coming up to an even more important zone of resistance, in my opinion, because the dollar hasn't been able to get above this zone since December of 2022. So this is going to be incredibly interesting to see what the dollar does end up doing from here, if it does get up into this range and then kind of breaking it, or if it does get a pullback. I still think pullback, obviously, but maybe just something a little bit like this. It clearly looks like the dollar has chosen a direction right now, and it also, most importantly, looks like Bitcoin doesn't care. It looks like Bitcoin doesn't care. Bitcoin's still actively setting new all-time highs as we speak, and so the current state of affairs, ladies and gents, is just fantastic. ETFs breaking $80 billion in market cap is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It's been one of the fastest growing ETFs ever. It's faster than BlackRock's gold ETF. We've already covered that in a recent YouTube video. Shout out to those of you that are subscribed to this YouTube channel, cashing out on this super time sensitive content. I recorded like 8 videos yesterday. You're about to get the altcoin videos coming out later on today, so make sure you are smashing up the likes and staying subscribed for that as well, ladies and gents, because that is going to be some super time sensitive content that you do not want to miss out on. We're talking about actionable setups that I'm looking to take to trade these markets in the altcoin space, which is so exciting because I think there's way more money to be made in altcoins than Bitcoin. I don't think we're there yet, but I think we're very, very close. And so I've actually gone ahead and made that series of video for you guys. We did a couple of live streams last night. All of you who are subscribed were watching that stuff, so that's super, super cool. Shout out to those of you that were. Take a look at this. The Mt. Gox Trusty Wallet Bitcoin balance on July 1st had 140,000 BTC. Now it's all the way down to 2,500 BTC. And this is such a big deal because originally back in July, you guys are going to remember this if you were watching this YouTube channel, there was a big fear-mongering campaign that the Mt. Gox Bitcoins from all the way back in like 2012 or whatever it was when it collapsed, that those Bitcoins are going to be distributed back onto the market now. For those of you who are missing the context, it's an exchange that went bust, and then it went into like management or something with the U.S. government. I don't know the specifics, but now they have to pay back, to the users on Mt. Gox, at least the users who are in America. And so there's a lot, there's a lot of fear that these Bitcoins are going to flood the market and then crash the market. And, your boy was coming on live streams and on videos and just reminding you guys that, we've actually already had these cycles of, fear with these exact types of news articles, these exact lines of reasonings. We've seen them before a million times, and they've never impacted the market negatively. We had Germany supposedly selling Bitcoin at the same time, and maybe even the United States, and of course Mt. Gox itself. And none of these things have turned out to be a problem. Their supply of Bitcoin is completely dwindled down, and obviously the effects on the market are almost the opposite. And so I think that's really important to keep in mind because we want to move away from sensationalizing sensationalized news headlines, although we are going to look at the news in just a second, and we want to be sticking to facts and real information that cannot be manipulated or that cannot be used to mislead you. That's really, really important. But keeping it locked to Twitter here, if you're wondering what's happening with Bitcoin, yes, the incoming Bitcoin-friendly administration, meaning Trump, has provided a recent catalyst, but that's not the main story here. The main story is that we're 6+ months post-halving, ladies and gents. This is what we're talking about, right? We were talking about the halving cycle and how we're not expecting a pump immediately afterwards, and it's going to take a long time. We were extremely vocal about this. Those of you that are subscribed, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. We said it over and over and over. We're not expecting quick moves from this, but it's going to be something that marks a point on the chart where afterwards, across a long period of time, very, very good things happen. There has never been an exception to this. It's now being proven that this occasion is also not an exception, and Bitcoin's continuing to do exactly what we expect with its halvings, which is absolutely fantastic. And that means a supply shock has accumulated. There's not enough supply available at current prices to satisfy demand. This is exactly what we've been saying. I've been saying it from a different perspective because me personally, I'm not as worried about mining supply in the market. I'm more worried about just speculative buyers and sellers, which some of them are miners, but miners are a smaller and smaller demographic these days compared to the bigger institutions and just, the panicked retail as well, because miners have been around for a while now. They don't really panic. Supply, demand, price equilibrium must be restored. The only way to do that is for price to go higher, which will flywheel into mania and a bubble. But that's how this thing works. Very sober analysis of this market here. I really like this. It sounds crazy to say, but there will be a reliable, predictable bubble every 4 years. But then there's never been an asset in the world where new supply creation is halved every 4 years. A post-halving bubble is the result. It's what happened after the 2020, 2016, and 2012 halving, and now it's happening. And now it's taking shape again. Welcome to the post-2024 halving bull market. This thing goes much higher. Shout out to 𝐁𝐥𝐨𝐅𝐢𝐧 here with a very, very sober bit of analysis here in the Bitcoin space. Absolutely fantastic, and I completely agree. It's moving exactly as we expect, and there are no surprises here. Back to the 𝐁𝐥𝐶 letter, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Prediction here is that the markets are now pricing in a 38% chance that we're going to see Bitcoin to over $100,000. It's actually risen to above 50% now on Polymarket, which is very, very impressive. It seems like a lot of people are speculating on a $100,000 Bitcoin. I don't know if we're going to get a $100,000 Bitcoin. You guys know me. It's not the kind of thing that I that I fantasize about. I mean, obviously, I would love to get a $100,000 Bitcoin. I just don't look at it. I don't really pay attention to price targets like that. And I think that's really important, right? I'm not a price target kind of guy. And the reason that I'm not a price target kind of guy is because a lot of the time the market's not going to, the market's not going to give you what you want. And if it will, it's going to give it to you so much slower or in a much worse way than you actually want. But also, it's not a productive conversation. Unless you want to sell at $100,000, but I don't know anybody that's selling at $100,000, because why the hell would you? We've just consolidated for 7 to 8 months at the all-time high, and you're telling me that you want to sell after the market only moves up by 35%. I mean, I just think it's silly. I just think it's completely silly to be selling at those kind of price levels. I think many other people would agree. And so for me, what's much more interesting than, where I can exit the market, it's where I can make more Bitcoin, right? If I got one BTC right now and Bitcoin gets to 100K, I'm only going to have $100,000. But if I got 2 Bitcoins, that's a hell of a lot more interesting, right? I'm going to be having $200,000. So for me, I'm not interested in how high this thing can go. I'm interested in turning 1 Bitcoin into 2, turning 2 into 10, and 10 into 100. That's the business model that I'm in, because I understand that Bitcoin's probably going to keep on making me money, and I understand that I'm going to get it wrong, and I'm not going to be able to predict the tops very well, and I'm not going to get the price targets that I want the way I want them, with the speed that I want them, and neither will you. And so I just want to focus on the number one thing that I can do to really skyrocket and really grow my portfolio, and it's only by focusing on growing my Bitcoin holdings. And that's why the altcoin video that's coming out soon is so important, looking at the Bitcoin dominance and all of the other major coins that we're starting to do here. So that's going to be super exciting. Like I said, just make sure that you are subscribed so that you don't miss out on this content. I'm going to be back with you guys later on today with a live stream. There's not a whole lot more I could say from here, ladies and gents. We've still got really good levels of support beneath us, and if we do end up coming back down, now we're starting to see really nice pullbacks. 17% to our main zone of support at 71K, and 22% down to our second zone of support, which I prefer, at 67K. We're now looking really good in terms of pullbacks. If we do get a pullback, it's going to be steep, and steep pullbacks are going to scare people. They're going to result in a little bit of a quick sell-off potentially. And obviously, the end result of that would be a lot of supply getting moved from impatient hands to patient hands. And I think it would really enable Bitcoin to continue to move up very, very strong. I don't know if that's going to happen now. And honestly, now that we've gotten quite far above it, I might not expect it to happen necessarily quickly. But it doesn't need to happen quickly. And the reason it doesn't need to happen quickly is, if we look at things like this one-day Ichimoku cloud, this support level stretches from $68,000 all the way up to $74,000 right now. But it's not going to be useful until the 10th of December, which isn't exactly a month from now. And so Bitcoin, really, it's going to have longer term zones of support developing down at these kind of price zones, but it's going to take some time for those zones of support to really mature in these price areas. We're going to see this with things like the daily EMA ribbon. It's obviously going to be a little bit more aggressive than the Ichimoku cloud, but it's still nowhere near the current market, right? And so, there's going to be some really interesting support levels coming up for Bitcoin, but it is going to take a little bit of time. And so I think it's entirely likely that Bitcoin might kind of slowly come back down, if at all it does. I don't know if it will. I'm not so sure about a super quick pullback at this stage. We're just going to have to see. I mean, it does look like this is a more vertical accumulation market where, even when the market stalls, it just kind of keeps going up, but a little bit slower, which is absolutely great. It's a very common characteristic of Bitcoin, and it just means that we're super healthy. Speaking of super healthy, Ethereum is not. Ethereum is kind of the opposite of it. It's already getting quite a sizable rejection off this macro resistance level against Bitcoin. This is against the Bitcoin chart here. It's got a heavy zone of resistance here on the daily from the Ichimoku cloud as well, and it's starting to drop. So this drop could be a kind of temporary pullback where, you kind of pull back a little bit and then continue to go up. That would be the best case scenario for Ethereum holders. I don't think it's going to happen. If it doesn't happen, then, we're probably just looking at continuing to come downwards, exactly like we've done every single time we've gotten some sort of a scam pump. I don't think that this time is going to be different, but, we have to see. We are setting all-time highs. Things are very, very crazy, and I think quite importantly, Bitcoin's dominance hasn't recovered up as much as I thought it would. It's recovered a lot. It's recovered, pretty much, more than half of what it dropped by, and it's also, extremely high compared to where it's coming from. So Bitcoin's dominance is still in an incredibly powerful position, but I did expect it to recover a little bit more than this. So we're going to have to see how this goes. I think that if Bitcoin's dominance does sweep this high, if it does get above this high, it's probably going to go up really quickly again, and that's probably going to mean a lot of destruction for the altcoins. It might not even mean destruction. It's probably most likely, I think it's just going to mean if Bitcoin is going up, I think it's just going to mean that Bitcoin goes up very, very quickly, alts go up a little bit slower. So alts are still going to be making money probably, but just not very much money compared to Bitcoin. And it's going to be much better to be positioned in Bitcoin during periods of Bitcoin dominance increasing. There are exceptions, right? I mean, if you're in a coin like Solana, for example, like it's hard to beat Solana. Right now, Bitcoin is beating Solana, but Solana generally is significantly outperforming Bitcoin. And I think that's probably going to stay, right? So there are a few coins that are looking, quite strong kind of on their own. You guys have been talking to me a little bit about SUI as well, which has been catching some wings right here in this market, right? And I mean, this is right now setting a brand new all-time high in price discovery territory. There's not a whole lot that you can say about a chart like this, so there's no point in me really analyzing it, but this is definitely popping off, so that is cool as well. So really a very interesting time in the market, ladies and gents. It's well worth having extra capital to trade with if you've never considered it. It's literally all it does is it just makes your portfolio a little bit bigger. It gives you more firepower so that you can make even more profits without even taking on risk. It's super cool. All you've got to do is start trading to get those bonuses on these exchanges here. Only check them out if you're allowed to in your country. And those of you that are looking for something a little bit more serious, we have had our first round of students finish our 12-week program, which is a very, very intense, super exclusive offer that we've launched here. It replaces everything that we used to sell before, and it has had flying colors success. It's very serious. It's not cheap. It is an expensive investment. But if it sounds like something that might be interested in you working directly with me, we have had phenomenal success. I'm talking about people paying off the fee that they paid, 50 times over, just in terms of losses that they did not get, right? They would have lost money if they didn't enter the program, and then they didn't, and it saved them 50 times more than what they paid. And that's just on the defensive side. Obviously, on the upside, we've seen people making way more than what they've paid as well here. So this is a big deal. This has worked out really well. It's never not worked out really well, crucially. So if you want to get yourself inside, so far it's been 100% success rate of flying color success. That might change, obviously, but this is worth checking out if if you're interested, you can just reach out to me with that link in the description directly, and we'll get you sorted. We'll get you all that information. But ladies and gents, thank you all so much for tuning in. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, you know exactly what to do. Smash up those likes, double check that you're subscribed, check the bell icon, all that good stuff, and I'll see you all in the altcoin video very, 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 very shortly.